help me welcome our moderator for today, Erin Coleman, Vice President of Industry Impact at Callahan and Associates.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for that great introduction, Kelly. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for taking time at the end of your busy week to celebrate Women's History Month and the extraordinary leadership of women, particularly in our great movement, through the lens of 5 extraordinary women board directors across the credit union system. Today's conversation is designed to give you a window into their leadership journeys, a little bit about where they came from, then governance lessons in complex times of today, and then a little bit about legacy as we think forward into the future. So with that in mind, I'd like to take just a couple minutes to introduce our esteemed panel, which is a great honor for me. Ms. Sandra DeVoe-Bland brings more than 35 years of engineering and technical leadership experience and decades of board service to her role as board chair at SRP Federal Credit Union. She is the first woman and the first African-American chair of her board, and she leads with a deep understanding of influence inside the boardroom and also across the community. Her work reflects a strong commitment to access, representation, and strengthening the credit union movement through inclusive leadership. And in 2019, she was inducted into the AACUC Hall of Fame. Sandra, welcome. Thank you for being here. Ms. Barbara Heyward brings over 35 years of leadership experience from the U.S. Air Force and civil service to her role as vice chair at Randolph-Brooks Federal Credit Union. She's a seasoned human resource executive and wellness advocate, and she approaches governance with a mix of discipline, mission clarity, and a strong focus on people and culture. And her leadership reflects a belief that strong institutions are built by creating opportunity for others to rise, especially in times of change. Thank you for being here, Barbara. So happy to have you and for juggling us in the midst of your busy schedule. Ms. Joan Nelson is also on the line with us today. She served as a volunteer leader in the credit union movement, also for more than 3 decades. A retired IBM executive and attorney, she currently serves as board chair at Coastal Credit Union in North Carolina and has been nationally recognized for her distinguished service, also including induction into the AACUC Hall of Fame with Sandra. So her leadership reflects a powerful combination of professional excellence, legal insight, and a lifelong commitment to expanding opportunity. And so she really demonstrates how experience and perspective can help shape an entire movement. So we'll hear more about that as we get going. Next up, I'd like to invite to the screen Ms. Kristine Wetzel, who has served SchoolsFirst Federal Credit Union since 1996, combining her career as a high school educator with decades of volunteer governance. She's a certified credit union board member, brings an educator's mindset to the boardroom, so she's grounded in preparation, continuous learning, which we all love, and stewardship. And her leadership highlights one of the movement's greatest strengths, along with her colleagues on the screen, dedicated volunteer leaders who invest their time and expertise to ensure that our members, our most important asset, in addition to employees, are well served. And then last, but certainly not least, rounding out this unbelievable panel is Stephanie Williams. She serves on the board of State Employees Credit Union in North Carolina, while also leading community affairs for Duke University and Duke Health. And as you can see, Ms. Williams is on the move and has made time in the midst of another speaking engagement to step out and be with us. So she is fully engaged, and that is why she has a unique background with us today. So thank you so much for being here, Stephanie. She's a former college president and has dedicated her whole career to developing talent and expanding pathways for growth. Her governance perspective underscores a truth, which is that institutions thrive when leadership reflects the communities they serve and when those organizations invest intentionally in the next generation of leaders. So with that, thank you again, panel, for being here. What an honor to be with you this afternoon, and we can't wait to hear from you. So let's just get started right away, everyone, and hear a little bit about the origin stories of this powerful group. The goal here today is to honor all of the women who have paved the way before us and also to honor those who continue to carry us forward today, including each of you on the panel. So I'd like to start with a question for all of you, and I will call on you individually so you know when it's your turn to speak. And so the question to get us started is this: reflecting on your journey to the board, what challenges did you have to overcome, or assumptions did you have to let go of, or what did you need to do to grow into your leadership role? So for this one, I'd like to start with you, Joan, if you don't mind.
Sure. I think the biggest thing I had to learn to grow into this leadership role was finding my voice. As you can imagine, 30 years ago, the credit union industry was an older white male community. So stepping in as oftentimes the only female in the room, the only person of color in the room, it was quite intimidating. So I had to learn to find my voice and trust that I belonged in that room. And when I did, and when I started speaking up and sharing my opinion, whether everyone agreed or not, other board members took notice. And one board member in particular, Bill Smith, who was a legend in the industry, took me under his wing. He then began to introduce me to his network. He began to help me understand many of the intricacies of the credit union industry. And because of him and his pushing, because he coached me along the way, I got my first opportunity to lead within the credit union, joining the board, and then becoming a chair of the board eventually. So finding that voice and not being afraid to jump in.
And also the importance of advocacy and
Yes,
allyship and having a
absolutely.
coach who helps you along the way. So thank you for that, Joan. Let's move next to you, Barbara. Can you share with us something that you learned or obstacle you overcame as you joined the board and what you've learned along the way?
Yes, good afternoon. Well, reflecting on my path of joining the board, one assumption I had to reconsider was that a financial background was the primary qualification for serving as a credit union director. At first, I thought, well, I'm not a financial expert, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an auditor. How can I fit into this program? I literally had to shift from thinking about technical expertise to understanding the value of perspective. Now, while financial acumen is, of course, essential, it can be developed. But strong leadership, leading people, operating with discipline and accountability, those are all skills that I learned in my 30-year Air Force career. Our Air Force core values of integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do is primary aligned with the Air Force, with the credit union movement. So I shifted from thinking that I lacked something to recognizing that I bring something pretty essential to the table, and that's the insight on people, culture, and leadership.
Love that. Love that. Thank you, Barbara. Integrity, accountability, service, excellence, all things that we strive for and that you certainly embody by your service. And thank you for the way that you changed the frame from what am I missing to what value do I bring? And I think that's something so important for women to remember, because we need to remember that we deserve to be here.
Yes, thank you.
All right, moving on. Stephanie, would you like to add to the conversation, please, and about your journey to the boardroom?
Yes, and first of all, thank you to AACUC and to these amazing fellow panelists. It's great to be here. When I came on board at SCCU, I had the benefit of having served on for-profit corporate boards and nonprofit boards, which was helpful. But one of the things I really learned or reaffirmed in this role is the importance of your value and your values. And much like what you've heard from the other panelists, both are important, right? What are the values that undergird your leadership? What's important? How does that show up in how you lead as a director? And then what value or gifts do you bring to the conversation? And really leaning into those. And much like Barbara said, understanding how important that contribution is to the organization and how your values and your personal value, your value add, align with the organizational values. That real mission orientation, I think, is what has been reaffirmed being a board member.
That's terrific. I love that combination of your value to be in the room combined with your values and how they also, the alignment with the mission of the credit union. So it's really about that purpose alignment is what I hear from you and how they all work together. So thank you. That's really, really great. All right, moving right along. Sandra, would love to hear from you next.
Wow. Well, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. When I reflect on my path to joining the SRP Federal Credit Union Board of Directors, I realized that it wasn't just about stepping into a new role, but it was a different level of leadership. One of the biggest challenges that I've had to overcome while shifting my mindset of doing to one of governing. And I would say that would be at a higher level because earlier in my life and career, impact often meant being hands-on because I'm an engineer by trade and a farmer by growth and solving problems directly. So at the board level, I had the privilege to demonstrate that influence comes through asking the right questions, setting direction, trusting the leadership, and in our team to execute. So I don't have to have all the answers to be effective because strong board leadership is more about bringing perspectives, different views, curiosity, sound judgment, bringing all that to the table and then leaning into the strength of everyone who sits at that table. So at an early age, I developed the confidence to fully utilize my voice at my father's feet, being active in the civil rights movement and integrating the school systems in the 1960s. So walking into spaces where I was the first or the only, it's just been part of my journey and a part of my journey since elementary school. So I understand that my experiences, my perspective and questions, they were necessary for a time such as this. One of the phrases that I'll use with our team at SRP is there's three sides to a coin, heads, tails, and the rim, right? So being effective at the board level, I knew that I would have to grow in at least three areas: strategic thinking, disciplined governance, and sight, being able to look at the bigger picture beyond the immediate outcomes or outputs, because affirming the journey is something that's critical. It's so important. So leadership at the board level, you got to prepare, you got to have perspective, willingness to keep learning while serving with purpose, people helping people, looking out for the best of all of the member owners, because it's all about them. They own the credit union, and as a board of directors, we represent their voice at the table. So speak truth in love with gentleness. And as my CEO constantly reminds me, it doesn't hurt to be kind. Just be kind.
In a world where you can be anything, be kind. Thank you, Sandra, so much for that. I heard so many great nuggets, as we've already heard from everyone. You can see all the emojis rolling by as we talk, ladies. So I hope you're paying attention to those. I heard curiosity, collaboration, asking questions or being curious, trusting, and setting the direction. So you got to trust the team, trust your colleagues on the board, I heard, and set that vision and direction, and then let the team lead and carry that forward, execute. And that was a challenge for you at first because you're a doer by trade. So that was a really important reflection. Thank you for that. And last but certainly not least, Kristine, we would love to hear your perspectives leading at SchoolsFirst.
There we go. Hello, everyone. So my journey was a little bit different. I started out as a member of our president's forum, which was basically a marketing committee at the time. And I was asked to travel as a member advocate for HR 1151 to DC, which I was able to contribute something. I had formerly worked for CNN in DC, so I felt confident in that. And shortly after that trip, I got a call from Rudy Hanley, our CEO at the time, asking if I would be interested in joining the board. And I think I actually uttered these words to him. I think you have the wrong number. I was a 30-year-old teacher, newly placed on bed rest with my first child. I had limited knowledge of financial systems. And the majority of the board members were, as we had talked about before, were males who had decades of experience beyond mine. And so it made me question what I could contribute to this body. And what I came to realize was that as an educator at an educators credit union, that my perspective wasn't just relevant, but it was necessary in order to represent the member. But that didn't stop me from feeling imposter syndrome at the time, because there was no formal onboarding or structured training. So most of my growth came from my own self-education, persistence. I had to actively build my understanding of the credit union movement, not just our credit union, but the movement in general, and try to learn about operations while finding my own voice. And I was very, very fortunate to have a mentor on the board who invested time in me, who encouraged me to speak up and pushed me to grow into the role. And I think with that support and the determination to really represent my members, I was able to develop that confidence and that financial literacy and the ability to contribute. And I think, as was said earlier, our why we do this is so important, like representing our members and representing the movement and who we are. You can be taught the rest, but if you have that core value, I think that's the most important.
Yeah, critical to understanding your why. It's so important to know that and then know how that connects to the credit union and how you serve in your role in governance. I also heard from you, Kristine, loud and clear, humility. I think that notion of servant leadership and humility is shared across your colleagues on the panel today. Additionally, just like Joan started with the power of mentorship, and love to hear how you all pay that forward as we move forward today. And then the determination around serving the member. And all of you have talked about the importance of remembering why we're here in the first place, which is serving the people of the United States and how we do that no matter where they live, and who they are. So thank you so much for that. Okay, everyone, buckle your seatbelts because we're just getting started. So now that we have gotten through this first kind of roundtable, I want to move on to individual questions so that we can hear more about how the panel leads today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a question of each of our panelists with a slightly different lens. And the goal is to kind of draw out a bit about each of their unique experiences. So to get us started here, I'd like to start with you, Joan. So Women's History Month, as you know, asks us to look back. And a big part of that in my mind is so that we can lead forward as well. So from your 3 decades of board service at Coastal, what's one thing about board leadership that you think has like fundamentally evolved or changed? And one thing that you believe we must never change if we're really to remain true to who we are as credit unions?
There are 2. You asked for one, I'm going to give you 2. First one is diversity. Just to see the changes that have happened by having the richness of diversity of thought in the room has truly made a difference, even in these crazy times when we're afraid to say DEI. The fact that we have all embraced that as an initiative within the industry allows us to continue to say that acronym out loud and proudly. And it matters. I see it in the decisions we make as a board because we have that richness of diversity of thought. It's different and it matters. And I think the other big change I saw is the engagement of our leaders. In my first half of engagement in the industry, the board has always had a good relationship with staff, but we were almost rubber stamping whatever they brought forward. And then you hit a rough spot. And you hit a rough spot, it causes you to examine how are you leading, how are you engaging, and how are you involved. And when that rough spot happened for us, we had to do some soul searching. And it has made a world of difference in how our board now engages with staff. You see much more challenging of thoughts and ideas that allows us to have a much better conversation about our strategies. To the point that was made earlier by Kristine, the amount of time we are investing in educating ourselves on credit union industries and concerns is a big difference from what I saw before. And I think we have to continue that going forward, both the diversity and the engagement, to ensure we sustain the progress we have made today.
Okay, so starting with the end last, make sure that we continue that diversity of thought, that diversity of representation, so we look like the people that we serve in the credit union movement, and the engagement, the bi-directional communication that's required across all stakeholders in the credit union system. I heard you say that loud and clear. And also to be able to have those important conversations that challenge thoughts and ideas, but not challenge the people, because we all have the same soul, and you value the executive team so very much and their leadership. And at the same time, it's your job to ask those questions. So thank you so much for those reflections. Really, really helpful. All right, let's move on now. And let's move to you, Sandra. And by the way, just for everyone to know, if you're a part of CTC, before I go, Sandra, I did ask all of our esteemed panelists, Ms. Renee, I said, how would you prefer to be called? Because I can call you chairwoman or vice chair, or director. I can call you Ms., whatever you prefer. And all of them said unanimously, please call me by my first name. So I did ask permission, and they were all unanimous in that. So I just want everyone to know that I'm coming to it with the utmost respect, and I got their permission. I forgot to say that at the top. So I thought I better do that before I get in trouble with Ms. Renee. Okay, so with that, Sandra, you have also lived the credit union mission in a historic way. You were, as I mentioned before, the first woman and the first African-American chair of your board. And so what I'm wondering is, based on your experience, how do you think about your influence, both inside the boardroom, across the community, and across the credit union movement?
Wow. I often tell people, I live in a glass house, so you see everything. I wear my feelings on my face. I would say on my sleeves, but I'm sleeveless today. So influence to me it's not just about position. It's really about purpose. So being the first woman, the first African-American chair of our board of directors at SRP, it carries both a responsibility as presents an opportunity. So the responsibility, I have to honor those who came before me, whether in the boardroom, previous board members, or the legacy of being fourth generation of my biological family on my paternal side. Because many people open doors for me, people who I don't even know, probably will never be able to recognize. And they did that often without recognition. But someone paved the way, but I had to be willing to open my mouth and speak my voice. So the opportunity for me is to ensure that those doors stay open, remain open, and even wider for those who are going to follow after me. So it's about protecting the legacy, protecting the culture, and letting people understand the why. Because true influence extends beyond the boardroom. It shows up in how I show up when we advocate for financial access. Just recently, I participated in a shred day. So how we invest in underserved communities, how we invest in the lives of our affluent members, our communities, how we model leadership that's inclusive, thoughtful, and forward-looking. In the credit union movement, influence means staying grounded in, I keep saying it, people helping people. That philosophy, it's not just words, it's action, it's passion. It makes making decisions that reflect not only on sound governance, but also compassion and equity. Our board will tell you, do I need to, Ms. Sandra put forth, should we consider an exception to policy? I'm constantly pushing the envelope because it's what our member owners need. It's their financial institution, and we're just the voice representing their opinion. So in our community, influence is measured by impact. We're looking at the families. Are we empowering people? The futures that we can build, trust, We try to earn that every day. And so I don't take the role lightly, but I see it I see it as a platform to lead with intention. I'm sitting at the table, I'm leading at the table. I challenge my fellow board members. We're at the table. We establish the policies, frame the procedures. It's on us. We're representing the voice of the member owners. We have to do the right thing today. Tomorrow's not promised. So right now, we have the voice. Let's speak truth in love. And sometimes it's cutting, right? It's going to hurt a little bit. But in love, people will remember the kindness and that you told them the truth. And sometimes you have to say, you know what? You messed up. And bring it straight, no chaser, right? Straight, no chaser. Because the platform at the board seat allows me to lead with intention, to lift others as I want to be lifted, to help others to climb up, and to ensure that the leadership at every level in our organization, I call it family, at our SRP family, begins to look more like the communities we serve. And that to me is influence.
That's amazing. Thank you, Sandra. So much to unpack there. I wish we had hours just for that one. So I'll be following up with you. But just a few things that I heard. I love the way you started. I'm a glass house. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I think I understand exactly what you feel. People who know me would say, "Yep, that's right." Also, it's not just position; it's purpose. The combination of responsibility, and with responsibility comes opportunity. Your responsibility to honor the legacy of those who opened doors for you, many of whom never got a thank you, and that's not why they did it. And so your opportunity is to keep those doors wide open and to ensure all the time that we're all focused on who we serve, because our credit unions are their financial institutions, in your words. So thank you so much for that. Really, really appreciate your perspectives. All right, so let's move on now to Barbara. You bring a different kind of trailblazing to this conversation. Your career spans military service, and everybody, let's hear some love for her and her military service to the United States. Thank you so much for that. And also human resources. So those disciplines are both at their core about leading people through good times and bad, and particularly important where there's challenge, because my reflection is like military service is, you still got to lead even when conditions are less than perfect, when they are all kinds of chaotic and the stakes are very, very high. And HR is about remembering that people are always the mission at its root. And so, if we think about transformational leadership and how important it is, particularly in times of uncertainty. So as we're thinking about the moment that we live in now and all the uncertainty and change that is afoot, given your unique perspective in these kinds of moments, how do those two things, your military service and your HR background, come together? And how does that show up in the boardroom at Randolph-Brooks?
Well, to start with, leaders stay anchored when everything else is shifting. So in times of uncertainty, when times where you just don't know from day to day what direction you're going in, I think that discipline and mission-focused governance is really about staying true to yourself, staying true to your mission, staying true to the credit union mission, and keeping the members at the heart of every decision. It's making thoughtful choices, it's asking the right questions, and it's staying steady even when everything else feels off balance. The true test of leadership during challenging times is the ability to stay calm, to communicate clearly, to keep people focused on matters that are most important. It's showing up with clarity, it's consistency, and it's care. It's not about knowing all the answers. It's about being steady, transparent, able to make a decision and grounded in purpose. That's what turns conflict into conversation and allows us to navigate change with confidence and with purpose. So to me, leadership is less about control and more about connection. And that's what carries the people through. Whether it's good times and bad times, you need to be able to adjust your leadership style because you have to lead different people different ways. There's no cookie cutter method. People look at things positively, they look at it negatively. But you, as the leader, have to be able to bridge the gap and show them yes, show them no, but be decisive enough to make decisions and stand on decisions and make it work.
Wow. More and more. Like my notebook is filling up, ladies. I hope I have enough in this little notebook here. I love what you said, Barbara, about discipline and being mission focused, also staying steady, even if you feel off balance. And that's what leadership is about, because people are looking to you to show that and to stay the course. I wrote calm, clear, focus. I saw someone in the chat a little while write clear is kind. Just saw someone write standing on business, care and consistency, the value of transparency as much as possible when that's appropriate, and how important it is also to be decisive in that kind way. And remember that in the end, it's our purpose, what matters. And that purpose is about people taking care of people and being there for our members. So thank you. That's terrific. Thanks so much, Barbara, for your comments. Holding that mission when things are rough requires us, we gotta stay the course. So Kristine, I'd really like to turn to you as we're talking about, that brings up kind of courage and preparation for me. You're an educator, an experienced board member at SchoolsFirst Federal Credit Union. So as we're thinking about how, along with the times, the credit union movement is evolving, so how do you believe we can stay prepared, informed, and courageous? And what role do you think leaders play in making that happen? And as an educator, how do you believe learning plays a part in that?
So, no surprise, I think education is foundational to this. The credit union industry, I've been involved for over 27 years now, and it's changed significantly. From increased operational sophistication to more complex regulatory environment, whether we're talking about technology, it's all requires continuous learning and a dedication to constantly being involved in the industry. I think for newer board members, that begins with, like I talked about before, strong onboarding, access to mentorship, and just as importantly, opportunities to attend conferences and engage in meaningful dialogue with peers. I think there's a lot to learn from talking to each other as leaders as well. Ongoing education should be an expectation for all board members, as well as advocacy and industry involvement. But equally important is fostering that courage in the boardroom. And I think that courage comes from truly understanding your members and their needs, and from being willing to ask thoughtful questions. And there was a comment made that boards, I think, have become more thoughtful and more willing to question as we've grown and become more diverse. And whether that's to deepen your own understanding or to respectfully challenge assumptions and decisions when something doesn't feel right, I think a well-informed board is a confident board, and that a confident board is better equipped to lead.
Confidence. You said being informed helps the confident. Could you just repeat that last thing again?
Yes.
Do you remember what you said?
A well-informed board is a confident board, and a confident board is better equipped to lead.
Yeah, so confident board is more equipped to look at all your colleagues like, yes, exactly what she said. The value of learning, spoken so well from the educator among us, the primary educator, and with that sophistication and complexity and all the different ways, means we have to keep learning and we have to stay involved. And you talked about how important it is for board members to stay involved. We have to teach ourselves, but we also have to be willing to engage with our peers and engage in meaningful dialogue, building relationships is important, but also to understand what's going on for you and what is it looking like? What are members asking for where you are? And how do these regulations affect you? That kind of thing is just so very important and critical to our collaboration in the system. So thank you so much for that. And another quote from this panel. We're going to have them for weeks. Ladies, thank you so much. Okay, and rounding us out in this one is Stephanie. Stephanie, so you are also an educator of sorts with your long experience leading large academic institutions. And now you have that governance lens as a director at State Employees Credit Union of North Carolina. So what kind of parallels do you see between developing students and developing the next generation of board and leaders in our system? And what do you think each of us should be doing to build that pipeline?
The wisest among us has something yet to learn. That is one of my favorite adages, because if we're not learning, we are really lagging. Learning is essential to our roles as directors. If you think about the dynamic and constantly changing business environment and the need to stay current in our sector, the strategic oversight role that we have as directors, requiring deep knowledge and understanding of our members and of our operations. And then really the modern risks that are particularly involved in technology today. We have to remain cutting edge, and learning improves our decision making as boards, as you've heard. But what I would also add, as we think about the next generation of leaders, is scaffolding. No one member of a board knows everything. It's why.
Uh-oh. She's going to come back. We're going to give her a moment. So far, she's shared the wisest among us has something yet to learn. Also talked about all the different ways that board members have to come to the table and the responsibility of board members. And she talked about a quote that she just left us with is learning improves decision making. And then she left us with the notion of scaffolding. So what I might do is let her come back to us, and I will bounce back to Stephanie, panelists, if you don't mind, and we'll keep rolling here because we're already almost at 40 after the hour. So, all right. Thank you so much for your perspectives. I don't know if you all have seen, panelists, if you've seen the chats popping and all of the love that you're getting. So well deserved for all of your great perspectives. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for your candid reflections on both the privileges and responsibilities of leadership, regardless of where that leadership is coming from. And you really remind us about the importance of our decisions today and how it really, that shapes the future in so many ways that we can't even imagine. And, and how important that is. So now I'd like to kind of turn the lens to the future, and I'd like to, I see Stephanie. So I'm going to ask another group question, but before I do, I want to go back to Stephanie so she can finish. Stephanie, where we left you was you said learning improves decision-making, and then you were just turning your attention to scaffolding and the importance of scaffolding. So could you, do you mind continuing there?
Thank you. And, this is one of the things that comes with the territory. But what I was sharing is, I think scaffolding is a really important technique, particularly for the next generation of leaders. There's no way to know it all. That's why you have a full board. But really building on what you know, developing your skills and your strengths, and making those connections to other parts and facets of our credit union industry. And being adaptable, as we all experience and can see in this moment, that too is a part of our learning and a part of our leadership.
Oh, I love that. So scaffolding, meaning you can't know everything. So how do you lean into your strengths and make sure that you continually learn to make those stronger so that you can contribute to your role, and then make connections with others who can fill in the gaps? Because just going right back to what you said, which is we can't be masters of everything. And how do we do that in the context of staying adaptable, particularly in these moments of constant change. So thank you so much. All right, so now we're going to turn our attention. We're going to move to the future now, Stephanie. I just went on and introduced our next little question while we were waiting for you. And I would like to go on now to sort of legacy. A number of you talked about legacy and the importance of legacy, the responsibility of it. So I'd like to, again, ask a group question, and I'll call on each of you. And the question is, based on your experience, what does responsible legacy building look like from your perspective for board leaders? And then what does it require of all leaders right now? So you can answer that from whatever perspective you wish. And Stephanie, I'm going to go right back to you again, so you can keep educating us, please.
I would say a couple of things. One, certainly honoring those who have blazed the trails before us. Mm-hmm. I certainly would not be here were it not for other individuals who made room at the table, who understood the importance of diverse leadership experiences and voices. So learning about that history, acknowledging it, and learning from it so that we don't repeat any of the mistakes of the past, but also paying it forward. Finding those opportunities to mentor, to bring others into the conversation, to get perspective from individuals who have different backgrounds, experiences, or different generations. All of that, I think, is really important. And ultimately, I think our work is about the organization. That's why we are in cooperatives. We're not here for our own personal legacies. We are really here to make the organizations or to leave them better than we found them, and to really make decisions with the long view, so that the generations that come behind us in these roles will inherit sound organizations, and the members will benefit by having greater financial opportunity and security.
Yeah, so how do we build greater financial opportunity in the long run, by both honoring the lessons of the people and what has happened in the past, and also paying it forward, and reflective of what Sandra was saying before, leaving that door wide open for others and keeping the organization in mind all the time. Thank you so much. I would like to move on now, Kristine, and hear your reflections on that question about what responsible legacy building looks like.
Thank you. So I think legacy isn't just what we accomplish today, but it's how well we prepare our entire organization for the future. So I think there are some key components to that. And I think it starts with strong governance, and that boards need to remain focused on their role of providing oversight, setting direction, and ensuring accountability, both within the board and within the team. And I think part of that is intentional succession planning. So both for the board and executive leadership, these conversations should be ongoing and not reactive, to make sure that we have continuity and long-term stability in our organization. And then finally, I know at SchoolsFirst, we have a strong focus on our member service culture and a clear focus on serving our educators. And that's been central to our legacy, but staying grounded in who we serve and why we exist will help ensure that growth never comes at the expense of our true purpose as a credit union.
Yeah, so staying focused, because we can't do all the things for all the people. So how do you use your why as that strategic filter for all the decisions that you make? And the value of strong governance, which is really about oversight. You said oversight, direction, and accountability, and intentional succession planning that is proactive. I love the way that you strung all that together, because all of that seems to be important as well. Thank you, Kristine. Joan, let's move on to you now and get your reflections on what legacy building means.
Well, both Kristine and Stephanie have spoken my original thoughts. So what I'll build upon that is education is so key. The world is changing so fast. If we're going to be responsible board members, even staff members, and understand how to sustain growth for our members and for our credit union, we have to understand what's out there. We're spending a lot of time investing in learning what AI is, what stablecoin is, all the buzzwords, because if we don't, we'll get left behind. So it's very key to sustain the future. We've got to understand and continue to educate ourselves.
The key to sustaining ourselves is education. I'll get my words out there eventually. Thank you, Joan. I agree. And it's not just the buzzwords, but it's what does that mean? And what does that mean to the members? And how is that going to impact the movement? Because there are trade-offs to every decision that we make, which is something that's a little kind of underpinning of all the comments that I've heard so far. And so marrying all those together and make sure that we're staying on top of it. Yeah, that's really great. Thank you. All right, Sandra, let's move on to you and get your views on legacy building.
We are coming next. Oh, wow. Okay, let's get this together. Responsible legacy building for a board leaders, it's not just about how long we serve, but it's about what can continue to stand, grow, and continue to serve our member owners after we're long gone, right? So it looks like putting the institution of credit union over individual me as a board member, my ego. So decisions aren't made for short-term recognition, but we're looking at long-term strength, stability, relevance, right? We don't want to be like Xerox. We don't want to be like Kodak, the typewriter, the number 2 pencil. A responsible board leader asks, will this serve the next generation? When I think back to 1960 and the group of volunteers who gathered over a fire station, small in number, and now we're 200,000 strong, it looks like intentional succession planning. I don't just lead. I'm really trying my very best to develop leaders, to encourage others to be authentic, bring your real self to the table. Again, straight no chaser. Bring yourself, because I don't want you to slip up. I can take your voice. I'm not judging you by tone. I'm looking for content, and I can weed through the BS, right? So when you make room at the table, you mentor others, you step into the space, into the room with purpose, you ensure that the leadership, it's more diverse. And at SRP, our diversity wasn't, quote, intentional. It just organically blossomed, okay? So we're more prepared. We reflect the communities we serve, and that continues to grow and flourish over time. We look like values in action, right? It's not just protecting the mission of our credit union or the credit union movement, but it's deepening it, making sure that when people walk up to me as board chair and say, Miss Sandra, you always saying straight no chaser, I messed up. I knew better, but I made some bad decisions, but I love my credit union. And I can lean in and say, okay, I'm gonna trust you, but you better walk straight. So it's not just protecting the mission, but it's deepening the relationships and accepting people where they are, putting a financial counselor to walk beside them to help them and hold them accountable. It means advancing equity, right? Access. Looking at the financial total well-being of all of our members, those who have less, those who have a lot. It's not just the initiatives, but it's also embracing expectations. I want to be like when I grow up. I want to be like when I turn my life around. It looks like courage in governance, making principled decisions even when they're difficult. I get a lot of heart-jerking pleas of second chance, third chance, ninth chance. But I have to ask the hard questions, the difficult questions, but yet at the same time, hold our organization accountable, but still supporting the growth, because we still have the future generation, even though we're serving the current generation. It looks like impact that we may never see or embrace. Responsible legacy building requires humility. I have to plant seeds knowing that, I grew up on a farm, plant seeds, knowing that someone in the future will benefit from the shade of the trees that will grow from the seeds that I'm planting right now. So it's at the core a responsible legacy, leaving the organization, leaving the credit union stronger, healthier, and creating pathways clearer for those who are going to come next, being able to allow my elders to continue to write checks, to come into the branches, but at the same time recognizing that the future generations, all they want is technology. They want to, I have to clear the pathway to embrace all. Understand why grandmama cut the ends off the ham and the ham still tasted good, and we could use the ends to season some vegetables later on. So at the core, responsible legacy is leaving SRP stronger than the way I found her, and knowing that the culture and the core values of the founders from 1960 still lives, providing that clarity. Because we can do things differently, we can embrace new technologies, but one last analogy and I'm gonna shut up. I'm a good, strong Southern Baptist person. I grew up in the Baptist church all my life. I grew up on hymns and notes, right? But music today is different. But yet this generation can take an old hymn that I grew up on and they can move to the beat and they can get the message. So the key is the message, the word of God. And we share that in love. It's a different methodology, but it's the same word. And that's what people helping people. That's the culture. That's the legacy that we're building. It's different methodologies for implementation to serve the present generation and future generations, but also preserving the culture and the mission, the purpose, but protecting those. That's responsible legacy building for the board.
Love it. Thank you so much. I think that we should write a book from this panel. We can just collect all of your words and we can write a book that would be a bestseller. I'm pretty sure. Just a couple of things that you said. One in particular that I wrote down, will this serve the next generation? Also, straight no chaser getting a lot of play, Sandra. So I think that's going to be a whole thing in credit. It's going to be a hashtag for credit unions now. The value of diversity, accountability, and growth. Again, many of you have said, how do we honor the past at the same time that we're paving the way for the future? And I love that visual that you had about, I'm going to be planting seeds that I may not see the shade, but what value it is to people of the future, to future generations, to be able to enjoy the shade that's provided by those seeds that we're planting today. So thank you for that. All right. Last but not least, Barbara, please round out this question before we go to our lightning round.
Well, yes, I agree with everything the other panelists said, especially the how can you cut both ends off of a ham and it still tastes good?
The good Southern way.
From a governance perspective, legacy means building a board that is informed, diverse, and future focused, not just effective today, but prepared for tomorrow. A responsible legacy is built on integrity and accountability, and is measured in the lives improved and impacted by us leaving the credit union stronger, more resilient, and better able to serve its members for generations to come. In essence, the strength of the credit union movement lies in its ability to lead with purpose, act with discipline, and always put the members first.
See, that could be the title for the book. Do you see what I'm saying? And then we could end with straight no chaser.
Straight no
or
chaser.
Maybe those would be the first words. I don't know, but there's great ingredients here. I'm just committed to it. I really am. All right. Informed, diverse and future focused, purpose driven. I keep hearing it again and again and could not agree more. Understanding our why and how that connects to the needs of people, and the value of measuring impact in terms of stronger members and the lives impacted, which is indeed what we do every day. So thank you so much for that. All right, ladies, we are at the very end. So we got to really race through our lightning round. So I want us to leave everyone with a little inspiration around the future of the movement. So to wrap us up, I'd like each of you to complete this sentence. The future of the credit union movement depends on. Barbara, we'll start with you. The future success of the credit union movement depends on
honoring its mission, lifting others as we rise, and shaping a future that is inclusive and resilient.
Wow. Okay, Stephanie, on to you.
I would say us. It depends on all of us here. And, you know, everyone on this panel had plenty of demands, but we prioritize being here because that shifts the atmosphere. And for all of our members and everyone affiliated with the credit union movement, our involvement is what keeps the mission moving forward.
Yeah, it depends on us. Well said. And look at all these beautiful women on the panel, so distinguished, who are sure enough paving the way for others. Thank you so much, Stephanie. It depends on us. Joan, how would you complete that sentence?
Staying true to our mission of people helping people and ensuring we're having impact.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderfully said. All right, Kristine.
I would say that it depends on staying true to our core values while working collaboratively to deliver innovative, accessible financial services and education that meet the evolving needs of our members.
Awesome. All perfect. Yes, inclusive, making sure that we're meeting the needs of our members. Sandra, bring it home for us, please.
Okay. The future success of the credit union movement depends on boldly advancing financial inclusion, embracing innovation, and staying unwaveringly committed to putting people over profit.
That's right.
Amen to that. We will close there. There were so many things to bring out of this. I'm out of time and I got to give SB a couple minutes. Everyone, please join me in giving these panelists amazing kudos. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you for being here today. And cannot wait for that book to be published. We'll come back for the publication party. And with that, I'll turn it right back to SB. Thanks, everyone.
So much, Erin. Can we please give Erin a round of applause?
Yes.
Erin is incredible. And you can see we have the team here, so everybody can see all of us. But thank you so much to our panelists. This was an incredible CTC Friday conversation. I don't know about you all, but I am leaving inspired, empowered. So many great little nuggets of information that were dropped and quotes. And yes to the book. We definitely need that book.
Yeah.
So with that, I am going to say thank you for joining us. But before you go, there's a couple of reminders I have to give you. Number one, we have our CTC Friday conversation for April that you don't want to miss. So make sure you sign up for that. We're putting that in the chat here in a little bit. And then did you know that we have a conference coming up in August? Because if you didn't, you now know. And we want to see your faces there. So please make sure you check out our conference website as well, because we want you to join us in person. So with that, I'm going to say, have a wonderful weekend, y'all. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. We truly appreciate it. And we'll see you next month and hopefully in August. Have a wonderful weekend.